Today we're talking about something quite special, the new Laowa Proteus 2x anamorphic lens. Let's get into it. A big thanks to Laowa for sending us this lens to make this video. We'd also like to thank Steph Senior and team for shooting some of the footage in this video. Now before we start, this is going to be more of an overview, but we are going to have footage from the field using this lens on projects, and we will be talking about our thoughts as we normally do. We are currently filming this video on the 60mm Proteus that has also been sent to make this video, and we're shooting wide open on the Canon C400 using its 16:9 mode. Now, while these lenses are technically Super 35, it's worth bearing in mind that when you're shooting anamorphic open-gate Super 35, it's pretty much the same sensor height as normal 16:9 full-frame sensors. And de-squeezed in camera, both of these lenses cover the full scope image from top to bottom, which is pretty cool. Now, I do think it's worth mentioning that both Taylor and I are very excited to be checking out these Proteus lenses. We've had a play with them before, and they are some of our favorite modern, reasonably affordable anamorphic lenses. The lens set is built primarily for Super 35 cameras, and most of the focal lengths start at a T2, which is pretty impressive. Now we have the 20mm here today, but there are a couple of other lenses joining the lineup. Maybe we'll check those out in the future. Now to start with, let's have a brief chat about the physical overview. These lenses are large, but they're not that much larger, if any, compared to the Atlas Orions. So they're not going to feel too out of place on a larger camera on a larger film set. And let's be fair, they are large for a reason. They're reasonably fast and they are incredibly well corrected, but we'll get more into that later. They come with 3 flare options, amber, silver, or blue, and we have the silver version here with us today. Now we have checked that this lens works with rear filter adapters, and we can confirm that it worked with both the Mofage and the Mikey variable PL adapters that we have. The lenses come with EF and PL mounts, and they are interchangeable, and they do allow for shimming with a back focus adjustment. Now I do think it's worth noting here that we have shimmed these lenses like we do with all of the anamorphic lenses that we look at on this channel, but something worth noting here is that because these lenses have a rear focus adjustment as well as the capability to be shimmed, it makes the process a little bit different, shall we say. And it's an interesting topic because we actually feel that the back focus adjustment is probably something that's more useful on zoom lenses than for prime lenses, and the rental house that we shimmed them at kind of agreed with us. Now having that back focus adjustment might make it tempting to adjust that instead of reshimming the lenses, but what you can find is that your lenses become sharp, but your infinity focus capabilities get thrown out. So on prime lenses, it's probably better to get your shimming near perfect and then worry about back focus if you need to, instead of doing it the other way around. Now these lenses in this set are a 2x front anamorphic, and that is a patented design, and they have no mumps throughout that focus range, which means that the squeeze ratio stays consistent. That's not always the case with anamorphic lenses of any budget. Now this lens comes in about 2.5 kilograms, which is hefty, and you may want to use a lens support for these. I definitely would. But it feels very solid as well, and your focus and aperture gears are very nicely dampened. In terms of focus throw, you get around 300 degrees, which is ample, and your aperture is sitting at 60 degrees, which is also quite good. Now the outer diameter here is the larger Cinema 114mm, so you will need larger clamp-on matte boxes if you're using them, and rather unconventionally, they do still allow you to use a screw-in front filter, and that is a 105mm filter thread here. The aperture markings come in both feet or meters, which you can choose at checkout, and just be aware that when you are renting them, they may come in one or the other. Our lenses, for example, one is in feet, the other is in meters. Okay, now when it comes to what this lens does, 20mm may not sound very wide, but you have to remember, for a 2x anamorphic lens, that means that you're looking at approximately a 10mm field of view from left to right. And it gets better, because the minimum focus on this is 48 centimeters. It is insane how close to this lens you can get, and it just looks awesome. Now, when we first heard that we were going to get this lens for review, one of the fears that we had was that it could be quite challenging to film content with a lens that is this uniquely wide. Now in preparation, Taylor went to go and watch the CVP video from when they reviewed the Atlas Orion 21mm lens, and they struggled to shoot with that one because of how crazy things ended up getting. However, what we found with this one is that while things do still look quite wide and funky, it made things a bit easier to deal with because it all looked quite natural and perspective correct, if that makes any sense. I know it's a weird thing to go on about, but we can't stress enough how nice it's been to shoot with this, even though it's such a wide-angle lens. The images are just very exciting. Now, it is worth noting that it is not quite as clean and sharp as some of the other lenses in the Proteus range, but you've got to remember how wide this lens is. It is quite an accomplishment that it performs as well as it does, in our opinions. When it comes to flaring, we see a really great performance, and there's quite a lot going on. They aren't just streaks, there's quite a bit of complexity in there for those that crave it, like we do. Chromatic aberration is also quite well controlled, but it is still there. In terms of vignetting, it is there, but it is correctable, and it is also worth noting that, again, we are shooting on a full frame camera, which should be very comparable to an open-gate Super 35 camera. Now, in terms of who should buy this lens, it's obviously going to be a bit of a niche lens. If you're looking for an ultra-wide 2x lens, this should probably be pretty high on your shopping list. If you already own and are happy with some of the other Proteus lenses, this feels like a very obvious choice. It may not be your first Proteus lens. In many ways, it is a very unique lens, but it is a very well-performing lens given what it does on the tin. Now, I also want to mention here actually that because it is a very unique lens, if you are someone that has lenses in rental, you might want to think about this. As a point of comparison, we have had access to the DZO R-less 14mm lens, and because of that lens's extremely wide-angle look, we actually saw quite a lot of rental out of that item. And that might be something worth thinking about here as well. There's probably not all that many 20mm T2 2x anamorphic lenses in the town where you live. But with that said, it's probably not a good idea to pick up just this lens because you're totally going to get the bug and you're going to end up buying so many others. So yes, in conclusion, this is a very unique lens, and even after our testing we're still excited about it, which is a good thing. That's probably the best result that you can hope for. Now, if you are interested in picking one up yourself, we will leave a link down in the description, and if you've got any questions, comments, concerns, leave them down below and we will get back to you. Anyways, that's just about it for us here today. We'll see you next time.